The fact is about this life we think we're living is that it is a variety of a dream, and within this living, waking dream we can create our own reality, but we can also have other people create our own reality. We all possess potentially enormous power. Human consciousness and human energy is exceedingly powerful, and we know this because all we have to do is look at what the human beings have accomplished individually and collectively. Enormous feats. But if we don't channel this life force, then it becomes a wayward life force and it becomes chaotic. It's like, for instance, I mean, the analogy, say like you've got half a dozen steeds in a paddock running around and pulling their forces and energy all over the place, but as soon as you put bits in their mouths and you tether them up, they can pull quite a weighty carriage. And so you channel that energy, you channel that life force. And you know that saying, take control of your own mind, because if you don't, somebody else will. And that has what has happened in the world, and it's what has happened forever. People don't realize that their energy is so powerful, it's so sought after. Everything in the universe is seeking human energy, human consciousness. Now, when some people have bad trips, I don't have bad trips, but lots of people have spoken to me about their bad trips, because what it is basically is their bad karma, or it's their energy which isn't tethered, it isn't harnessed, and it isn't directed, and so all it's going to need is a bit of a free radical energy in the vicinity, and then that energy is focusing on that. And so anybody that speaks about having a bad trip, all that needs to happen is the mind has a thought which is negative, and it's not conducive to positivity or happiness. Then the energy of the mind flows into that negative thought, and it gives it energy, and it builds it up, and it expands on it, and before you know it, what's happened, a potentially beautiful enlightening trip has turned into a nightmare. Now, if you just look at people's lives, if they aren't channeling their energy in a direction in which they know it should be or want it to be, I mean, lots of people, they don't know where the energy should be channeled. They don't know what to do with their lives. And if they don't know what to do with their lives, then they will stare. In the old days, you used to stare into a newspaper trying to get inspiration of what you can do with your life if you're not working. Or you look on the internet, jobs. And honestly, they're all absolutely abysmal, aren't they? I mean, what part of any of these new modern positions of slavery would you ever think will be remotely rewarding? I just look at what's available, and I always did do in my life, and I used to go, you think I'm doing that? You think I'm wasting a third of my life on that? Are you serious? And so that's why I'd never worked for anybody. I've always worked for myself. I thought, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, but it ain't going to be that. And whatever I'm going to be doing is going to be directed by my own energy and not somebody else's. And you know, I've done relatively great things in my life. You know, my energies took me all over the world, and I've been involved in lots of different projects and things like that, and I've been pretty self-accomplished. And even if I failed at doing any of the things that I wanted to achieve, then I don't have anybody else to blame. I only have maybe uncontrollable circumstances, or I never had what it took to succeed. But I never set out to reach for the stars. I was always modest in what I set out to do, owning my own businesses and, you know, doing whatever I was doing, you know, with my life in a sporty type of way, you know. I was once a member of the British full contact karate team, and so I represented Great Britain for a few years, and so I channeled my energy into that, and that was very rewarding. But for those of us that don't know what to do with their lives, they don't channel their energy. You see, we've all seen these motivational speeches, and you've got Will Smith, and you've got Jim Carrey, and you've got Joe Rogan, and, you know, Morgan Freeman, and it's all about going out there and getting it, and don't be defeated, and wow, all this sort of stuff. Well, if you listen to their stories, then you'll see that it's not by accident, and it's not anything that they really had any measure of control over. It's just the creatures that they are. It's like Joe Rogan would say, he hated himself. For years and years, he considered himself to be such a loser. And so what is it now that constitutes his accomplishment? He was never accepting no for an answer. He would be the most severely and vicious self-critic when he was doing his stand-up comedy, when he was competing in his martial arts. And this is why he trained and he trained and he trained and he practiced and he practiced and he practiced and all this sort of thing. And even today, you know, basically you could say Rogan's a workaholic. He's always involved in something. And the same is for any of these people. Jim Carrey, entirely disappointed with himself as a younger person, and just wanted to make people laugh. You know, looking at that goofy, skinny frame that he had, thinking, what the fuck am I going to do with this? Well, get people to laugh at me. That's the start. And so they've done all this. And, you know, all the things I've done in my life, mostly is because I was disenchanted and not happy with my life as it was. And so you could say that I was absolutely forced into doing it by an energy which was dwelling within me that didn't want to live the sort of life that I was destined to live if I didn't change things. So it's a funny thing, because what I can say is about my life now, this body really has just been along for the ride, because there's been an energy which has been the driving force behind it forever. And it's the energy, it's the life force that wants to come to have a human experience. And some human experience is going to be pretty wild, because that's the variety of spirit that's entered the body. And so I'm an advocate for this reincarnation, choosing your destiny, choosing the variety of life that you want to live. It seems perfectly feasible to me. It's just like going to get a job. You choose the variety of job, the vocation that you want to experience. Sometimes, or you just take it because, oh, you know, there's nothing better that's befitting to you. And so maybe you get some sort of lethargic spirit that just go, oh, I can't really be bothered to climb mountains and you know, conquer the world this time, and so I'll just pick that body of that fat bloke, and I'll just experience, you know, what it's like to eat myself till I'm sick on pizza and donuts. Yeah, that'll do me. And if you think that these lives relatively are over in a flash, then it's probably just like, you know, picking a movie. You know, in the old days we used to go to the video store, and sometimes you're seeing loads of movies, think, oh, I just want to see something I've not seen before, and you go, oh, randomly you pick one video, and most times it's crap, but sometimes you can be surprised. And I think, you know, there's something to be said for that. But what I do know is that it's all about energy, and we've all seen people in our lives who are influenced by other people's energies and what they say, and all this sort of business. But all these people that are like telling you to get up and go and get it and don't ever say no for an answer, well, they could never do anything any other way. That was the variety of creature that they were. And by saying that to people who aren't designed that way, who don't have that same energy, who never had the same disappointment with whatever their lot was originally. You see, anybody that gets fat and out of shape, you can see that primarily they're not that bothered about being fat and out of shape, because if they were, then they would seriously do something about it. Then you can say, well, some people, their thyroids are an issue and it doesn't burn the energy like it does on a normal person, and whatever they do, they're never going to be slim. Yeah, well, there is that level of misfortune. But I think when we look at most people, because everybody isn't in the gym, then there is a large portion of society that are quite happy with having a bit of a pot belly, a flat chest or sunken chest and thin arms and all this sort of thing. Guys and women, my bum's a bit too big, boobs are a little bit droopy, but him indoors doesn't seem to mind too much. So why would I want to go through all that effort? So they find a level of contentment within their imperfections. But people like Jim Carrey and Joe Rogan and many of these people that have made it, they've made it for a reason, because there's an energy within them which was never ever going to rest until it has achieved something. And so Jim Carrey and Joe Rogan, and probably, probably the vast majority of them also, by the time they've travelled that road, they've made lots of realisations in life that road wasn't so great. In any case, it's been a good learning curve and this, that and the other, but what really has it given them? And so Jim Carrey, for instance, now he's, speaking to people very philosophically, because he's had tragedies in his life and, things have happened. And all of the stardom and the wealth that he's got still couldn't make him happy, because he was on Prozac for 10 years. And probably when you look at him now, if he's not on something like that, then he's on some of the other variety of drug, the psychedelic variety, which give you more in the spiritual realm. And so we need something, and the human experience is about experiencing for the greater part, and so we need something to help us along and to initiate us into certain things. And so, for me, like now, walking up here, I've walked to gyms for 40 years, 45 years. I've been walking, cycling and all the rest of it to gyms, and it's something, as I get older and start to get a bit of a tweak here and there, start to feel like I'm not really up for it, can't really be bothered and all these sort of things. But there's a drive over and above any what the ego wants to do. The ego, I just sit back now, and the body just does what it wants to do. It goes where it wants to do, and it gets involved with whatever it wants to do. And I look at it and I go, well, can't fault it really. You're doing all right. So if that's what you want to do, then keep on with it. But people who aren't so fortunate that their energy drives them into negative fields, like overindulging in eating and dodgy drugs and laziness and all these sort of negative traits, well, that's unfortunate, but it's the same energy. And when you look at someone that's like 45 kilos, no, not 40, 450 kilos. They're massive. They're as big as cars. When you look at someone who's as big as a car, you ask yourself, well, what stage did you give up on that? Because personally, if I started to get even remotely, you know, a bit bigger than I am now, and it wasn't muscle, then I'd have an issue with that, and I'd work vehemently in the opposite direction. But people who are as big as cars, it's kind of like that thought never crossed their mind. They just keep eating, and until, you know, they can't even live a life. And yet, they don't appear to mind. And it seems to me that that's what their spirit came here to do. And the spirit has pacified their minds, pacified any drive whatsoever to work in the opposite direction. It's just tranquilized that zest for working for a slim, fit and strong body. No. We will put an end to that right now. So Spirit put an end to all that and has killed off, you know, other potential energies. And so, you know, it's all interesting to think about all these things and to look at who we are as people and what level of satiation we find in life and what do we find our satiation from, and could we say that it's by our design, because we get up in the morning and we're motivated to do all these things? Can we say that it's about having the drive and the desire and the tenacity to do all this stuff? Or would we say that the ego isn't responsible for how we are? And for me, I would say that the Spirit chose my body. It chose my level of energy. It chose my level of power that I can draw on, and it chose me because it knew that I could take it all around the world, and I wouldn't be fear-based, and I wouldn't shy away from any number of experiences. So I've had a whole myriad of experiences. I've lived 100 lives, 100 good lives, and so Spirit chose this body and this genetic makeup to give it that journey, to give it that experience. Anyway, hasta luego, guys and girls.